Ouachita Baptist University, if you all know where that is, in Arkansas. I do have a music degree in church music, but most of my experience has been in the more band and contemporary kind of area, but I do have a classical music education. As you can see, this is my family. This is a year ago, so when you have young kids, they're already way bigger than that. But my wife, Sarah, we've been married for 13 years. We met in college. She also was a music major. She's a therapist now, so, minister therapist, we got people needs covered. So the handsome guy down the corner is Asher. He is my 8-year-old. He loves all things science, Minecraft, anyone, and reptiles. Really into reptiles right now. And then the cute guy up there at the top who is not looking at the picture, even though we sat there for 15 seconds saying, Caleb, look. That's Caleb. He loves all things sugary and sweet. Does not eat vegetables. We call him tiny but mighty. He's a little hurricane. When I tell people all the time, when the sun shines, it shines really bright with him, but when it rains really hard. And so he has a shorter fuse. He has the best laugh, though, in the whole wide world, and he is a blast to be around. Minister's a great thing about me, but as y'all probably are aware, parent is an even better thing, though. So my church experience, though, I have about 13 years in, I've been married 6 months longer than I've been on a church staff. So all of my full-time experience has been in Houston, Texas. I was on staff for 5 years at Jersey Village Baptist. They are now merged with Champion Forest Baptist in the Houston area. It was there I kind of got, I would say, my School of Hard Knocks. Spent a lot of time just working in more contemporary circles. When I got there, they had a choir, an orchestra. They actually had 2 choirs. They had a senior adult choir and adult choir. They had an orchestra. They had a handbell choir. And I knew how to do 0 of that. And so they were wonderful and gracious with me, though. And I learned how to do a lot of different things at that church. And my worldview opened up a whole lot in terms of what you can do in a church with music. The past 8 years, I've been on staff at Alleluia Baptist Church, which is actually about 13 miles up the road from where I was working. And at Alleluia, I've been the contemporary worship leader. 2 years ago, we brought both of our services together, and so we have been on that journey, which has been a very rewarding, difficult sometimes. But on our Sunday, we have a full symphonic orchestra. We can have 100 people in the choir loft, and then we have a band, and we just go for it that way. And so I've told people all the time, I hope my son, just growing up in church, thinks it's normal to hear the Hallelujah chorus and then hear something from Passion. And I hope that he comes into church with a wide palette and has a wide appreciation for a lot of different forms of worship. But as far as like band stuff, I've worked with youth bands. I've worked with adult or amateur bands. The church I grew up in was pretty much all volunteer. I have been a part of the band. I have led the band. I have worked with paid professional musicians. It's been kind of a wide array of different types of people I played with. And what I really, in terms of like rehearsing, why I kind of wanted to go into this topic is, I guess the issue and tension I see a lot of churches have is you want excellence in your services and you want excellence from the musicians, but you're also a church. And before there's a product, there's something you want your team to do, but before all of that, they're people. And you're charged to love them. You're charged to pastor them. You're charged to be more than just a technician for them. And so what I find is you have a minister who's maybe really, really good with people, and he loves people, and they love him, but is not so good with the organizational and the being able to have the difficult conversation of saying, hey, we're struggling right here. Let's figure out how to get this. They may struggle on that and how to run over. So initially, then you have the guy on the polar opposite end who is really good, and he is going to be upfront and abrasive about how to get the best possible thing for people, but they don't want to listen to him because they don't feel like he loves or cares about them. And so really what I'm wanting to do today is just how do we get excellence, but how do we remember that you're working with people who a lot of times are volunteering their time. Even if they're professional, they still will view this as an act of service and an act of worship that they are giving their church, or at least they should. And so a lot of it is how do we try to have a good rehearsal to get a good result, but then how do we treat them like we love them and we care about them? And so that's kind of the tension that I'm wanting a lot of this discussion to sit in, is being reasonable but still have high expectations. I already talked about my qualifications or lack of, so we're going to just move along. So for me personally, what I strive for in rehearsal, these are kind of, again, almost like could be opposites, I guess, but I want it to be professional. I want to feel like if I have them for an hour, we got a lot done in an hour. I want to feel like when my musicians walk in, I'm ready to see them, and I'm ready to talk with them about what we're going to do. I know the music as the leader, and but also personable in that way too. Of like, I hope beyond all of those things, me being a professional and doing my job, I hope that in the rehearsal that they know that this is a person who's leading this rehearsal. Beyond that, this person cares about me. If I'm having a rough day and I'm not playing well, he's not going to chew me out for that. He has high expectations for me, but he cares more about who I am than what I can just give him. Organized but flexible. I want to have a good plan put together for them. Some stuff happens though. Sometimes your musician has a great idea. They say, hey, we thought about this. And I can say, I like that. Let's do it. And you can invite a little bit of feedback and flexibility into what you do. For us, flexibility is kind of hard because I mentioned we have a whole lot of people. When you have 100 people in the choir and orchestra that all need to know what you're doing, it can make flexibility different. But if it's not a musical idea, like the drummer says, hey, I got a different idea for the kick pattern. Me and the bass player worked it out. And I can say, I like it, let's do it. That sort of thing. So have it all organized, but be flexible. If there's a better idea, if you need to change, be open to do that. Direct but kind. You're not going to skirt over issues. If my musicians were sitting here, they'd probably be like, he. If the tempo's not right, it's okay to address that. If they're struggling rhythmically, it's okay to address that. You know, if the vocalists are struggling to get their parts together, it's okay to address that. You should address that. You know, don't worry. Again, don't be a jerk, but address the issues. And the other thing you're going to do is, even with sensitive band members, you're going to get them used to hearing feedback. They need to hear feedback. I need to hear it. We all need to hear it. That's the only way we get better. So be direct with the things that you want from them, and often it's setting expectations beforehand. You can't expect them, to play great if you don't get music to them. So that's assuming you're doing everything you need to do. But yeah, it's okay to be direct. But on the flip side of that, do it in a kind way. Hey, to my drummer's name is Zion. Hey, Zion, I felt like in the bridge, I felt like we were kind of struggling with tempo. He goes, yeah. And is there anything, is there something about that song that's unclear or something that you can say, yeah, he said, I honestly didn't listen to it as well right there. I said, okay, that's cool. Sometimes simply acknowledging it is enough. And then he goes, I'll listen to it again. I'll go, I trust you. But let kindness be kind of those things that goes with it. So direct but kind. Those are just things that I try to go by. You probably have your own philosophies and things like that you have. Main values in this discussion, I've already kind of said this, but you're a minister first, you're a technician second. So you love them before everything else. keep your standards high. It is okay to have high expectations for your people. And even if they are not met immediately, so what that means to me is like, let's say you're working with students, it's okay to have high expectations for them, but you also need to understand that like, if you want them to sound like the Passion Worship Band, that they're just learning their instruments, they're not going to. They're not going to meet that. If that's your eventual goal for them, that's great, but they're not probably going to be there for a long, long time. So be gracious when people don't meet things immediately, but know how to help them move towards progress. But know what the standard is. Know how you want things to go. We can talk a little more about that. Okay, so I have this kind of divided up. Before rehearsal, during rehearsal, and it was kind of an afterthought, I have to admit, for after rehearsal. This is all the stuff that leads up to the rehearsal. So these are, and again, some of you may be going, oh, I do. Of course, I do all of these things. Great. I'm just giving you a little more of how I approach the before rehearsal time. I'm hoping I can get through this enough time to where you guys can share some things that you do. I would love to learn from you as well. So before rehearsal, in the preparation phase, this is more for new musicians or amateur musicians if they're in the phase of learning how to prepare. So like, you can send them everything they need to know, but they don't really still know what to do with it. Like, you can send them what to listen, like, hey, listen to the song, but they're like, I don't know what to listen for. If they're kind of in that spot where they're still learning how to do this, again, have the high expectation, but understand they need to be taught how to do this. So bad expectation with these people in this phase. They are capable of learning and playing the exact parts from the recording without any help. That's a bad expectation to have for them right out the gate. They're new. A good expectation would be that they listen to the music on their own and they practice on their own. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's okay to have that type of expectation of like, hey, I'm going to send you this music beforehand because I want you to listen to it and I want us to come into rehearsal really prepared because we want to give God and our church our best. That's a good expectation for people there, and then you can kind of go from there. Start instilling responsibility for their part in the band. So when have that expectation that they prepare. Do not use shame or guilt tactics. I hope that goes without saying. You may have people that respond to shame or guilt tactics, but eventually that doesn't work. I think it is simple. Like just if they're, like I said, if you have an issue with someone preparing, just say, hey, how's preparation going? And then they can say, yeah, I'm not really into it. Why's that happen? I'm really busy. Okay. Well, what do you think would need to happen for you to start being able to prepare? Like asking a lot of questions, but don't like, hey, you should be prepared. How can you do this? Is for God. Don't get into that. Be quick to praise good preparation when it occurs. So I'm thinking with teenagers. The first youth band I worked with, like not the first one, but I worked at this church that was right outside of Little Rock in college in Arkansas. And it was a mid-sized church, probably mid to large size, so I'd say 500 to 600 people. We put together a youth band, and all of them were pretty much brand new at what they're doing except one kid. And this kid was he was going to learn the parts. He was going to do all that. And like I said, when you see that happen, tell them, hey, good job. Hey, I noticed that song. You had that lead line worked out perfectly. Good job. If you have a drummer that is not used to preparing, but you notice they have the groove right because they listen, even if they don't have anything else right, say, hey, that part you're playing on the verse, that's exactly it. Good job. Because guess what? That's a positive response they get for doing something like that. So I think giving them good, positive feedback when they do the right thing, it's that reward thing. What's rewarded is repeated. So if you're rewarding good prep, they're more likely to keep doing that. And then, they'll probably get better at it when they do it as well. So prepping that, and that was with more amateur musicians. With professional musicians, my personal opinion, it is okay still need to be patient, gracious, all of that thing with them. They should know what they're doing with that. You know what I mean? Like, they should be self-sufficient. When you send them the recording and the charts, they should know what to do with it. That's why you're paying them. They should know what to do. I would say if you're having to coach too much, for someone that's supposed to be professional, if you're having to put the kind of effort into them like you are for an amateur, I don't need to be paying them. But with professional musicians, I would say just make sure that you get them what they need in a timely manner. It's still, I mean, you need to be respectful of time, whether they're volunteer or whether they're paid. But I think you're expecting them to bring a professional service to you. You need to be able to provide them with professional service too. So maybe set up a time that they know when chord charts should be coming to them, and recordings and the planning center invites and scheduling. And I would say just more be professional on your end too. If you expect that from them, be that. More on timelines. Be respectful of their time. Do we have any people, you aren't the leader, but you're a musician in your... All right, how do you feel? Has this ever happened where the worship leader sends something Saturday night?
Dory's real good.
Dory's real good. Sorry, me and him done the same guy. I've talked to musicians where they're like, our worship leader, I love him, but he sometimes sends things the night before we need to play them. You are not setting them up to succeed. You are not being respectful of their time. Because it's one thing, you send them 4 or 5 songs at 8 o'clock the night before, you expect them, if they've never heard any of them, do you expect them to learn all 4 of those extremely well? You shouldn't, because you didn't give them the opportunity. So be respectful of their time. They also, if they have families, they have bedtime with their kids. They have all of this stuff that's happening. So make sure they have an appropriate amount of time to prepare. Still have the expectation that they prepare, but give them the leg up, help them. Have a set time to get music to team members. For me, it's weekly. Things are, we kind of have 2 different things that we prep for with our church. So I have a Wednesday night rehearsal with our band where we work somewhat on Sunday, but we work mainly on things that are upcoming. So new songs that we're going to bring maybe, stuff like that. And then we have the songs for Sunday, which are usually well known. So sometimes we'll get to them Wednesday, but for Sunday, I like to make sure they have that stuff, by that point, like Tuesday or something, so that even if we don't get to it Wednesday, they have enough time to listen to it before Sunday. But yeah, that's just my timeline. You may get it to it way before. If you do, good for you.
So does your group rehearse in the morning before the worship service? Or you just...
Well, yeah, we do.
There's no rehearsal? Here we go, guys.
No, we do. I would say it's more of a sound check Sunday morning. So what we do is we do like a 45-minute or so rehearsal on Wednesday night that is more just rehearsal. If there's something new I'm putting in front of them, that's usually when it happens. Sunday morning is, it's about 30 minutes where we make sure to just get a run through of what's happening that morning. I would say it's more sound check because we usually run it before. If there ever is something that we need to tweak, we sometimes do that then, but it's more meant for making sure our media guys and all of that it's all,
So at some point prior to that Sunday morning, though, even with your professionals, you've run through the pieces.
Sometimes. But if it's common songs that we've done a lot, sometimes
You just need to start them, but...
Yeah. I'm a little more OCD on, I want to make sure we at least have a run through, even if it's familiar, even if it's just once, just to make sure, because there are every once in a while those things that just pop up. And
well, that's what I'm talking about, because in a way I'm thinking, he never runs through the whole thing to make sure everybody is on the same page for that 4 numbers that you're doing on Sunday morning.
So what I would do though is if it was 4 things that we know, we will prioritize it. So like usually if it's something for Sunday and we run it Wednesday night, it is to rehearse with our orchestra because they need to know. And so we'll pick like that one and say we're going to run that. Or if it's a song we haven't done in a while. If it's something that is in our common, we've done it over and over, I would rather prioritize something else that night. And then just put that for Sunday so where we can, we still need to run it, but we're not going to spend any more time on it than we need to. I don't know if that makes sense. So for me, I kind of spread everything out over Wednesday and Sunday, if that makes sense. That's my thing. How I've done it before is we just set up a Sunday rehearsal where it's just one and we run through everything. But right now I'm trying to do something different of getting further out on some things. And so that's mainly what Wednesday's for. But I may be making that more confusing the more I'm talking. But yeah, so we do get through everything though. It may just not be on all on Wednesday. Some of it may be on Sunday. Okay. Relative and specific preparation, I think more, I'm trying to remember what I meant by that. It may be more of that, the way I learned in college, I would say, I was the type of guitar player where I would say, send me the recording, and I will listen to it, and I'll have a rough idea of how everything's going to go. And then if you need to change the key when I get there, that's fine. I wouldn't be too attached on the specific key. I would learn it in a more general way, if that makes sense. Specific preparation, I would say, is giving it to them in the exact key, in the exact order. I would say some of that depends on the type of church you're in. So I've worked with some guys, and I love leaders that are good at doing this, where they give you, here's the 4 songs we're doing, listen to these versions, but when we get to rehearsal, we may do these totally different. So that's what I mean by more relative preparation. And I do fine in that setting. Most musicians, specific. I would say that. You need to be specific. For me, I like to make sure the exact order that we're going to play the song, that's the exact order in the chord chart. That's the exact order in the piano vocal music. It's marked that way. What they are, and it's all attached in a coherent way, so where it's all together. They should, in my opinion, this is what I get to our musicians every week: chord charts, lead sheets, piano vocal music, recordings, and what we have started doing as a church too. So I'll have usually the recorded like artist version of a song that we base everything we do off of. And then what I usually get our sound guys to do is record us playing it that Sunday. And then once I get that back from them, then I go and attach that in there so we can also start having this, here's how we do it. And also if we do it in a different key than what the original recording is, that sort of thing. I feel like it's helping our musicians go back and go, oh, that's how we do it. Mainly our vocalists too, because it's confusing if you're looking at a chart in B flat, but you're listening to a recording in D or something. That's just the way I feel about it. The other things too, like I've utilized rehearsal mix and multi-tracks. Basically what those do is they take the master mix of like a popular song, like let's say Living Hope by Phil Wickham. You get the studio, like everything used in the studio in that recording, you get it. The acoustic guitar, how it was used and recorded, the electric guitar, you can isolate it and listen to the exact part, and you can learn it that way. This can be very helpful for musicians in their prep, because it gives them the ability to isolate the instrument so they're not listening to it all at once. That's a service done through multi-tracks. Worship Initiative also has something similar where they have all the sheet music and recordings, but then they also have like tutorials and like videos of people playing the songs, which I found things like that can be very helpful for musicians as a credit. Communicate who is doing what in preparation. So For me, I have a little section in planning center for vocals where I put, it's typically 3 people, me, and then I usually have 2 female singers. We have a rotation, so it's different people each week. But I'll put Sky leads, Andrea, I'm using real people's names here, Andrea alto, Sarah soprano. That way they know when they go to the music what parts they need to be focusing in on. And then, or if someone else is leading, Sarah leading, just so as they open up things, they can go ahead and look at those things and know beforehand, I'm leading this. And I talk to them obviously about this too whenever we're together. But yeah, so communicate who's doing what. If you have 2 electric guitar players, who's going to play the lead, who's going to play rhythm, things like that. Don't cater to the superstar. All churches have them. We all have that one singer that's just better than everybody else. Don't let them be the only person with a solo though. Let multiple people lead songs. Don't let a person have their song. And what I mean is, whoever, Betty in the church may really love What a Beautiful Name, and that's her song. She's not the only person that gets to sing it. Y'all aren't only going to do that song when she's on the team. It should be whatever you need to use it, and so don't let that. Don't let one person kind of dominate all of that. Share the load. Don't make it to where you have to be the only person leading stuff. That's just one thing I've noticed, and in my personal opinion, I think there's a healthier way to go about it. Quantity over quality. This is pretty self-explanatory. For me, I would rather them execute a smaller group of songs really well than do a mediocre job on a lot of songs. I noticed this when I was working with students. Giving them 2 to 3 songs to work on, it was so much better than, and honestly on you, when you're having to rehearse something, you're like, I can get through 5 songs, we're just now on the 2nd song, time's almost up. It's okay to cater it to what their ability is. Like I said, if you know where you want to go, eventually you want to do 5 songs. Or we're going to do 3 with the band, and we'll do 2 with someone on acoustic or whatever. There's ways to go about that. But I definitely think they need to feel like they're a part of something good. And you're going to have a better chance of that by prioritizing quality over just making them do a lot of something. Again, that's my philosophy. Yeah.
On that, quantity over quality. You mean quality over quantity?
Yes, sorry. It's
but the question was, so would that affect, take a month worth of songs? Does that mean because we nailed this one song, and I'd rather have 1 really well than 4 that are sloppy, that we might have less songs in the rotation? Might be a way of...
Not necessarily. I'm thinking more like in a service setting.
Okay.
Instead of doing 8 songs not well in your worship service, do 4.
Sure.
Do 4 really well. Now, but then again, you may have a team where y'all do 8 songs really well, and hallelujah, good for you. But I feel like I've seen that a lot of times is sometimes, and I feel like you can overextend your members a little, like your band members too a little bit if they have too much to prepare. That's probably more of where I'm coming to is I think they need to feel like they're a part of something, that's excellent, and they feel like what they're contributing is meaningful, and they go, oh, that went well. When you have that feeling, when you play a song, you're like, oh, that went really well. That's such a good feeling as a musician. And so I think put them in positions where they have a positive experience with the songs. Yeah.
Can I add to that in an opposite way? So I don't have a worship band. We don't have a worship band. I have a guitar group, and I have them play. And so the opposite of that is I also don't want to call them in to just do 1 song.
Oh, yeah.
So I made sure, in their repertoire, they have our Glory to God whose goodness shines on you. So I know that you can come in and we're going to kind of do this hymn, but we're going to also do this so that they can have a couple of things that they're doing in the service instead of just feeling like I just have this one thing. So that's just from the opposite way instead of all the
fair. That's fair. And yeah, and maybe these things have a more tension that you have to sit in than just saying, you know, if you only do one song well, you shouldn't do anything else. That's not what I mean. But yeah, no, that makes total sense. You want to utilize them well.
If they're there, it's the same as if you hire a violinist. It's like, okay, can you play on those 2 minutes too?
Yeah.
You want to.
Well, and like I said, yeah, you know, that's assuming they're going to do a great job on it. You know, and so yeah, I don't think I guess I can understand it can be a little I'm not saying if you have a lot of stuff happening in your service that means it's not being done well. But yeah, I would just say prioritize quality over make sure what you're doing, regardless of how much or little, is really good as opposed to just doing a lot of stuff.
I mean, it's like you. I can imagine at your church, the orchestra's playing on something, maybe on everything.
Yeah.
But the band is not going to just participate most likely in one thing. They're going to at least participate in 2 or 3 things.
Absolutely.
As is the choir. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a fair point. That's a very fair point. Let's see. Message me how songs they can immediately play and songs that will take time to master. So just giving them a challenge too. Like Parker, you and I talked about this a while back. So I had this idea with my team. I don't know if y'all have listened to Behold the Lamb of God by Andrew Peterson. It was like 5-6 years ago. I said I want to do that, and so I got with my team members. I said I want us to do this, and we had the pieces to do it. There's a few tracks on that really stretched us, that were really hard for us to pull off. And they were things we had to work at. We didn't just nail it in one rehearsal. We had to do this one, then a month later we revisited, but that was so good for us to have it wasn't immediate gratification. You know, it was like, okay, that part was a train wreck. And then the next time it was like, okay, yeah, that part last time wasn't so great, let's work on it. And then when you get something like that too, it's still such a good feeling of like we put all of this work into it. And so I think putting things like that aren't as easy to master initially, that's a very good thing, I think, for a musician. I think just in general too, like doing this is good for people. But yeah, we also have those songs too that they can just knock out of the park, you know. Lead by example. Don't expect them to do something they're not willing to do. So if you expect them to prepare beforehand but you don't, that's not a good expectation. And you're not going to really be able to speak to them with any type of real authority because they're going, you obviously don't know. Like you're leading this and you don't know the lyrics. You don't know how the song's supposed to go. And that's not mean you can't be imperfect. Like I make mistakes in rehearsal all the time. Like, you know, I'll refer to my musicians. I'll be like, that was a mistake. Hey, was I supposed to do that bridge one more time or whatever? Not mean you have to be perfect, but I think they need to feel like you're putting the same amount of skin in the game that you expect them to. And let's be serious. We're probably putting way more in.
It helps when they take ownership.
Yes, 100%. Okay, during rehearsal. So everything we've talked about is leading up. Here's what some things for during rehearsal. For the leader, know the music inside and out. For me, what that means is I can mentally walk through the song. Verse 1, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, instrumental, bridge, that sort of thing. I can mentally go through what needs to happen in the song. That's what that means for me. It may mean something different for you, but I think having it internalized, I think, is super important. Having it in you. And I think, to me, I can always feel that difference. Even if they're a good guitar player or singer, if you feel like they're too attached to the chord chart in front of them, it's not in. You know, they're still letting that tell them what they need to do. Have it in you. Like, I hear people all the time criticize contemporary worship because it's only 4 chords, but you still see them using a chart, and I'm like, what's the big deal? Like, memorize it. It's 4 chords, you know? And so, but it does take effort still to do that. But I think make sure you know it inside and out. Be mindful of their time. That was true of how they prep. That's also true in here. If they're expecting an hour, go an hour. You know, don't go an hour and 15 minutes. Sometimes things happen and you have to go longer. Don't make that the norm, though. Always be respectful of the time that If you're asking them to commit to this, try your best to be true to that commitment. Try not to act out of frustration, especially with amateur musicians. If they're not getting something just right, it's a process. It's going to take a while for them to get to that place. Even with professional musicians, don't act out of frustration. Try to keep it even. Try to keep it even demeanor, even when things aren't going well. Be the anchor. I would say this is mainly, when you're working with younger amateur musicians, like set the tempo. Be confident in it. If they're going to follow you, make sure it's right. And I would say when you work with more professional musicians, they're more self-led. You probably don't have to have as much of that riding on your shoulders. They're good. You got a good drummer, he's got you. Be the anchor in terms of rhythm. That's just mainly what I'm talking about. But I would say you can't expect, especially younger musicians, to develop properly if you're not giving them the proper example. So if you want them to be tight rhythmically, but you're not, there's an issue because they're being formed. They're spending the vast majority of their time with you. So if you're letting your issues be the thing that drive it, don't be surprised that they have the same ones. I remember in our worship service when we were still two, I was leading our band, and I was like, man, they're just playing really heavy. And that was the only way I could put it. Like, when we just get to part, they're just playing heavy, and it just didn't like it sounded good. And I would say it like, hey guys, on the bridge, I thought they're just playing really heavy. And it was a couple of months that went by, and I went back and I listened to our service, and can you guess who was strumming the mess out of his guitar really heavy? Me! And they were following my lead on that. That is how I was leading them to play. And so I think what I learned is if there's an issue, sometimes the best place to start is back with yourself and go, is there something I'm doing that's making this happen? And so the second I started playing a little differently and my actions started aligning a little more with my words, even though I wasn't trying to be hypocritical, I was just being a human. But it's funny, that issue started resolving itself too. And I even joked about the band members with it. I was like, guys, I realized I've been writing you guys about how heavy we're playing. I realized I was doing it. You know, they, of course, were like, get them used to feedback. I already mentioned this. Lean heavy, heavy, heavy on positive feedback. Try to eliminate negative. I mean, sometimes it has to be. Sometimes you have to point out the issue that's happening. If you're having a rhythm problem, it's the bass and drums. Like, hey guys, I feel like we got to get this together. Can me and the drummer and the bass player, we all work together for a little bit and get this. But I think definitely lean more on positive. When they do something great, be quick to say, whoever vocalist on your team, hey, awesome job on that song. That was so good. And, for the thing that you really want to see from them, like, you really sing bold right there. And, and to me, like, let them know that you see when they do good things, not just when they do bad things. Appropriately and lovingly point out areas of growth. Not, hey, you're terrible, play better. Hey, I feel like we're struggling here. Hey, I feel like I'm sensing this issue. Do you sense that too? 9 times out of 10, I'm like, yeah, me too. I'd be like, do you have any ideas? Is there something I can do that can help? Like, if you go about it more that way, I think you're typically going to get a better result, and you're not going to make them feel bad for just being a person and needing to grow. Praise an area of strength before addressing a weakness. If they're struggling with tempo, I think start with like, hey, man, you're really playing dynamically great. I really appreciate how well you know the song. I feel like on the verse, though, I feel like we're struggling a little bit with, I feel like the tempo is dragging a little bit. I find that if you go about it more that way, they in their mind are going, he said a bunch of positive things to me before, they're not going, he just thinks I'm bad, And so I think a lot of times, praise their area of strength before addressing the area that needs to grow. Never make issues personal. The drummer comes in unprepared. Please do not. Like, what's wrong with you? You don't take this serious. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be something understandable. My kid's sick. Work is crazy, and then you can step into those moments pastorally. Think on your feet in rehearsal. Fallback plans. That did not go well. All right, let's do this instead. That kind of thing. Hey, what we were trying to get, that rhythmic pattern of the song, I think that may be a little beyond what we're capable of doing right now. Can we simplify that? Be able to have that ability to change things if they need to be changed. Have enough knowledge of the instrument. Yeah, that comes with having enough knowledge of the instruments to make those changes. Yeah, be flexible. Be personable. Another typo. You can tell this is the first day of these. Not greet each musician, greet each musician before rehearsal. I would, for me, I don't like come up every time and shake their hand. I see these guys every week, but it's, hey man, how your week go? Those kind of things. Even if it's just simple, just making sure I talk with them and acknowledge them. Help them with equipment. If you have those electric guitar players that bring in 15 different things with them, say, hey, can I help you with your amp? Can I help you with your guitar? Pray together with your team. I try to, in an ideal situation, I pray before and after, but usually I pray with them before rehearsal. Have contact moments with them. I'm talking when they're with you, like before and after rehearsal, before and after service. I have a musician on our team. His dad's got health issues. I try to make it a point to ask about that every week. How's your dad doing? Maybe he says, I don't know. Okay. If you can sense that somebody maybe had a rough day at work, yeah, you okay? I think those type of things, again, they help them know that you value them as people. For the songs, for me, beyond just having the music just prepared appropriately, have the intros programmed too. Like think through when we come into this song, how are we going to do that? Is the drummer going to count us in? Do we have a click track? If that, or is there going to be cues that count us in? Those beginning parts of the songs are super important. So I think having a plan for intros is really important. Have a rehearsal outline as far as the songs go. And again, this can be rough and it can change as needed. But I think having an outline, so what I do for our Wednesday rehearsal for our musicians is I just put the songs if we're trying to get through 5 of them, I just put them in a rough order of how we're going to go through them. And then I try to just make sure I have enough time to hit on each of these. What I like about our rehearsal, kind of what we're doing, it gives us enough time to get into the minutia parts, like where, if you do need to spend a lot of time on something that's more complicated, you can do that. So if you don't manage the time well, what I find happens is then you get to that part where you really need to get into it, but you don't got enough time. So that's why I would say just have a rough outline. Transitions, that dreaded space between things in the service. You do 2 songs in a row. You finish the song. It was great. People clap. Silence. 10 seconds pass. Then you go into the song. Think through those parts of the set. How are we going to get from this point to the other point? I think it's important that you treat what's in between the songs just as important as the songs themselves. That doesn't mean you have to have this big elaborate plan. I think just have a plan. Is the keys player going to lead the transition? Are they going to give a pad that's going to help us get to the next song? Is a vocalist going to step up to the front and read scripture or say something between the song? When the song ends up, should I encourage people to clap? Things like that. They're just a natural flow for how the songs need to go. And if you have the transitions thought through, communicating with the musicians, and the keys players who's doing it, just make sure they know they need to do it. At least have a plan. And transitions, like for me, there's nothing worse than a bad transition into something. And I say this, they happen all the time. But I would say at the very least, just make sure the transitions don't hurt the service. So just have a plan for how things need to flow into each other. Consistency is key. I would say you want consistent excellence, not occasional excellence. I think you can do this by getting consistent prep rehearsal rhythms. We've talked about some of this. Have a consistent day that you get information to musicians. Communicate with them weekly. And that's not just giving them the chord charts. That's, hey team, on Wednesday night it's going to look a little different for us. I'm going to take the vocalist into this room and I'm going to work with them. So-and-so is going to lead the band. And then we'll join up later. Like, communicate things like that with them. And even if you're just communicating silly stuff with them, like, hey guys, hope your week's going well. I saw this, I thought it was funny. Even things like that can help build that sense of community. I think just communication in general is a good thing. A consistent place to find these rehearsal materials, whatever way you're going to do it, but I would recommend that subscription to Planning Center. It can keep everything in a nice little place for people to find it each week. Limit the surprises. So, there always are things that come up, but if it's something that you can plan for, you should do that. Try not to come up to your vocals last minute and say, oh, hey, by the way, can you sing this instead of that? If you have that information beforehand, try to be respectful and let them know ahead of time. Have a set day and time for rehearsal. That seems self-explanatory, but I think just having that weekly time that your musicians know to plan around. They know this is when we do this. Same, just a few things on consistency. Make sure it's measured. Don't overload them. That kind of goes with the quality over quantity thing, but don't give them way too much. Or know your musicians enough to know when you're giving them too much. Don't over-rehearse them. It's beating a dead horse, but like, we have been working on this thing for 15 minutes. It's not getting any better. Just move on. Don't make rehearsals consistently go long, all that kind of thing. Build rotations in your team. I think that helps with keeping them fresh. For me, the worst thing that can happen is you have a great musician that gets burned out. And so I think they're also important for consistency, but I think if you have a consistent rotation, that is overall going to help your team long term. After rehearsal, I would say talk through any issues that remain. If there was something that didn't go just great, I feel like I'm always referencing the drummer or something, but like, hey man, when we practiced at the bridge, I don't feel like we were quite together on that. Can you listen to that before next time? Something like that. Or hey, can we look at the music real fast together? I'm not sure I'm understanding. Things like that. Just getting together with them, or just any of those little things that maybe still hung over that didn't go quite right. Those few little minutes after rehearsal, I find are a good time while it's still fresh, just to mention. This one has been great for me. Asking the sound guy, they're looking at it from a totally different vantage point than we are. We're in it. Like, we are working hard on the music. We're trying to get them all together. They're listening to us do that. If you say, hey, for that song, did it sound okay? And they can say, I felt like the kick was a little weak, or I felt like the vocalists just really weren't singing with confidence. Like, it can be anything, but they're going to listen from just a totally different place. And they're listening through what's coming through the microphones and the speakers, and so asking them their thoughts on these things are really good. Help your team members with equipment. If you help them get their stuff in, help them get it back out to their car too. Be encouraging. Just always encourage. I think just, again, talk about things that still need to be corrected, but come to the people and say, hey, man, really good job on that song. That felt really good. How do you feel like that went? They said, yeah, it felt really good. Well, great, you're doing a great job. And I think stuff like that can help. You'd rather it be a more encouraging environment than the alternative. So, and I think after rehearsal is a good time to get that positive